because a lot of the conflicts that we see is fear. A lot of times when we see someone not listening to the police or resisting, it's that fear. And if we can remove that fear, it would help in eliminating some of these issues.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue Podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue Podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue Podcast is coming at you right now. Hey, Black and Blue fan, welcome to another edition of the Black and Blue Podcast. And this is where we celebrate diversity in U.S. law enforcement. Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Dale, and I'm the host. Thank you for showing a little bit of love for this show, for a little bit of entertainment and information. If you like what you see, please consider clicking those like, subscribe, and bell icons right down here on my YouTube channel. And if you're listening to me on your favorite podcast platform of choice, consider rating the Black and Blue Podcast 5 stars. And last but certainly not least, be sure to check me out on any one of my social media pages for even more content. You can find me everywhere at Black and Blue US. All right, so with that down, let's bring on today's guest. He is a retired detective from the New York City Police Department. Black and Blue fam, let's welcome to the show, Dr. Alfred Titus. Hey, how you doing, sir?
All right. Thank you for having me, Dale. And hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well.
All right. So what's going on out there in the Big Apple?
A lot of things going on out here in New York. Crime is an issue. Obviously, policing, law enforcement is always, one of the hot topics in New York. So with crime going up, the summer approaching, there's a lot of concerns.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into all that, and we'll talk about your career, talk about you and what you're doing now, because you see down there on the lower third of the banner there, it shows that you are retired. How long you been retired now?
Yes. I retired in 2016, so it's been quite some time, a little over 5 years, and I'm still in New York, enjoying my time here, waiting to eventually find somewhere else to call home to finally retire 100%,
Okay, yeah. And I hear the accent coming through, the New York accent. So you born and raised, or?
Yes. Born and raised in South Jamaica, Queens, tough neighborhood. My parents instilled very good values in me, and that's what allowed me to push through all of the negativity that was around me growing up. I was a little bit in the streets at one point, trying to decide which way I wanted to go, looking at the flashy drug dealers back then and the cars and everything that was happening. And, because of my parents and, the values that they instilled in me, I decided to go education. So I broke away from my friends and I got my education and started a career actually in electronics, fixing computers and things like that. Copy machines. Back then they had fax machines were popular. And, I just I didn't get the satisfaction that I was looking for, with that type of career. And I also realized that I'd be working for at least 40 more years before I could retire. And that was a big number back then for me when I'm only 20 something years old,
Yep. Yep.
So, I decided to try something that I always wanted to do, law enforcement. I wanted to help people. So I took the test and got in and started. Never
Okay.
looked back.
Never look back,
Hmm.
huh? How long did you
Never
do?
looked back.
How long did you do with
Uh, I
NYPD?
did I did 20, I did 1 month short of 24 years actually. So 23 years and 11 months. And I started in transit. Back then, NYPD was separate from the transit police and the housing police. They later merged in 1995. So I came on in 93. And I was part of the Safe City, Safe Streets program where they had a huge push to clean up New York City. They hired thousands of police officers to start new initiatives and increase omnipresence and community policing. So I was part of all of that, and I went out into the subways and became a plainclothes officer very quickly. I think I only spent 6 months in uniform. So I became plainclothes very quickly and got in there and helped cleaning up the city. You know,
Nice,
it was a
nice.
great time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then when they did merge with the city PD, what was your career like after that?
Well, things changed a lot. The job became a lot more rigid, a lot more structure involved. But in addition to that, we had a lot more opportunities. So at that point, I decided that I wanted to become a detective, and I went that route. I became a detective and got into the homicide squad after some years, and I enjoyed that tremendously. I worked on some great cases, met a lot of great people, and became a hostage negotiator as well. But one of the things um, that always remained with me was that my goal when I got into law enforcement was to help people and was
Yeah.
to make contact and make connections and well when I say make connections, I mean with the community. Try to uplift the community wherever I could,
Right.
the young people, you know. So when we had investigations, I was that detective who always spoke to the young people and asked them, "What are you doing here? Why are you running with these people? Why are you in the streets? What happened to your education?" You know, and I would try to build a rapport with them. That was always who I was, and I became known for that. And with certain cases, that really helped a lot. And you know, I was able to break through certain cases just with that mindset involved.
Yeah, yeah, that's always a good skill set to have to be able to talk to people, the gift of gab. Would you say you had the gift
Hmm.
of gab, or was it just really interpersonal
Yes,
relationships?
yes. I had the gift of gab, but at the same time, I was also the guy who kind of laid back in the cut for a minute and just watched the situation and then decided which way I was going to enter. You know,
Yeah.
which what actual element of the conversation that was taking place was going to allow me to come in, and that's usually where I focused on.
Yeah, yeah. So as a hostage negotiator, I mean, being able to relate to people regardless of where they came from, I'm
Hmm.
sure is a pretty big skill as well, right?
Exactly. Yes. We had a lot of great cases with the hostage negotiation team as well, which in NYPD it's not a separate unit. The hostage negotiation team is you're so I was still in homicide, and when there was a hostage job or a barricaded person job, I would get a call and I would break off from what I was doing in homicide and go take care of the hostage negotiation job. So it was like a dual role, but being able to communicate was key because that was the focus. Keep communicating with the person, get as much information from them as you can, and then try to recycle it and use it to get to break down whatever barriers exist. So you know, communication was key.
Yeah, yeah. And for our viewers and listeners out there, that I'm sure have watched many TV and movie shows over the years, where they say in hostage negotiations that we don't negotiate with hostage takers, we don't negotiate with terrorists, but
Hmm.
that's kind of counterintuitive to what the position is, right? Hostage negotiator, right?
Absolutely. 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 And we do negotiate. We don't necessarily uh, give in to demands, but we definitely negotiate. Our goal is just to talk, even if it takes 4 hours. I've been on negotiation jobs that have taken 4, 6 hours. Sometimes there have been some that take days because that's the goal. Just keep them talking.
Yeah, yep. And they
Hmm.
definitely break you so that you can get some rest and then somebody else takes over. But
Yes.
that's part of
Right.
the
Right.
tactic where but unless they got a rapport with you, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes, it's important to build that rapport. And when you don't, then it's important to for you to give up the reins to someone else, and maybe they can build that rapport. So that
Yeah,
all of those things are important tactics.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And then,
Hmm.
so as a detective with NYPD and homicide, dun dun, that's Law and Order, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So
I
you,
love that show too, man. I watch
yeah.
that all the time.
So would you say it's pretty realistic? If for the most part.
Absolutely. Out of all of the television shows, out of all of the law enforcement shows that are on today, Law and Order, besides the fact that it's open and closed within 1 hour, besides that obvious fact,
Besides that
it
part,
is it is the most accurate. As a matter of fact, they have taken our cases from NYPD itself and used them, and I've seen several of my own cases that they have used. They add different twists to it, but it's the same basic case, and it's
yeah.
very realistic. Very
Yeah, I
realistic.
mean they gotta jazz it up a little bit for TV and all that, add a little bit of
Exactly.
dramatic points and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean
Yeah.
they even say so in the beginning of the show that some of these are kind of real life cases. They
Hmm.
change the names and this, that, and the
Yes.
other, to but it's ripped from the headlines as they say.
Hmm.
Abs-
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then going back to I wanted to say this when we are talking about when you were in transit. That was the same from the movie Money Train, right? They were transit, right?
Money Train.
Yeah,
Yes.
remember that?
That's
Remember that movie?
exactly how it was
Yeah,
too, man. We had so much fun.
yeah,
And not being under the umbrella of NYPD allowed us a lot more freedom. So we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun.
yeah,
Things kind of changed when NYPD took over, but it was, I, I was, to be honest with you, I was just honored to have been in a position where I could work in communities where my people were, because in transit, I worked in Harlem and Washington Heights. And for those of you who don't know New York or these particular areas, that's a wholly African American area and a Hispanic Dominican area. So I was able to work in a community with my people, and that brought me so much satisfaction, so much joy. From both sides, being there to communicate with them as well as to help the families by helping to lower crime and remove a lot of negativity from their communities. So it was
yeah.
positive all around.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and going back to when you were talking about you coming up and all that, and then you kind of had to break away from your peoples, from your buddies and all that. How do they feel when you finally decided you gonna go the route and be NYPD?
Yeah, well, some of them were proud of me, and some of them actually followed suit. However, there were those who, I mean, I had one friend in particular that I hadn't seen for maybe a year, and I ran into him at the gas station, and he's still street and all of that, and I'm kind of like a little bit, different, I guess I'll just say.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he rolled up on me and he said, "Yo, I heard you're a PD now. I can't f with you no more." And I was like, "Wow."
Wow.
I was like, "All right, man.
Yeah,
Do you just be careful out there, man."
yeah,
So he's still running around doing his thing, and it wasn't a bad situation. It wasn't a conflict, but there are a lot of people that I no longer were able to be friends with. I'll just say that.
Right. Yes. Yes. I mean, and that's just the
Yeah.
nature of, being in law enforcement, and some of the people that you ran
Yes.
with in your youth. Yeah. Yeah. We can totally understand that. And then
Yes.
NYPD being, the largest department in the U.S., in the largest city in the U.S. Is pretty diverse nowadays, as opposed to when you first came in. What do you think about that? The
Yeah.
efforts to recruit
Yes.
more Black and
Absolutely.
Hispanics.
Absolutely. That when I first came on, we were just sprinkled in, but now you're seeing a lot more of it. They're rising up through the ranks. We have an African American female police commissioner. The mayor is,
Yes.
is, is African American, and so there are a lot of positive things happening within NYPD. It will always be a huge government entity. And, there are certain aspects of it that will never change. But the racial diversity is one of the things that is changing. And that's a positive thing. I would still like to see more young people see NYPD or see law enforcement as a possible future, and because the rewards are great. Let me tell you, and and everyone who's listening, who's in law enforcement, the pension alone. I mean, I can't even. Sometimes I can't even understand how I sit home and I could do nothing if I chose to, and I'm getting a check coming in every month, and it's a nice check, and obviously it's for the hard work that I put in, but to be able to work 20 or 25 years and then be paid for the rest of your life, that to me is the biggest thank you for the work that we do and the risk that we take. And
Yeah.
I try to get more and more young people to understand how important a pension is, especially in today's world and the way the world is going, how important it is to just have something like that you can bank on. It really makes a difference in your life and generationally, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And you talked about,
Yeah.
that you could sit around doing nothing, but you don't. You obviously doing some other things. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
I
Okay.
see the title in front of your name, doctor. There, you were a doctor of what?
Yes. Well, I have my PhD in public policy and administration with a criminal justice specialization. So, because education was always important to me, when I became a detective, I I got into a program, NYPD, and I'm sure a lot of other law enforcement agencies have a lot of scholarships, which is another thing that I try to inform young people of. So I took advantage of one of the scholarships. I got a full scholarship to get my master's degree, and I got that while I was a detective. And because I have children, I have three children of my own. The youngest is 25, and the oldest is, I'm supposed to know this, 37 or 38. I
They're
can't
putting you
remember.
on the spot there. Putting you on the spot, Al.
So, yeah, exactly. So I always wanted to be a example to my children. So I decided to go for my doctorate degree, and so I started that as well, not on scholarship. They didn't have scholarships for that level, but so I got my doctorate, and I've just been pushing forward ever since. Education has always been important to me from day one. From the minute I made the decision between the streets and education, it's always been education from my bachelor's all the way up, and I just follow that. So
Yeah,
just who I
nice,
am.
nice.
Yeah,
And so, what are you
thank you.
doing now in retirement?
Well, I'm doing a lot of things in retirement. So I teach. I teach at the college level. I teach at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. That's one. I think it's one of the leading criminal justice schools in the country. As well as I started several businesses. I started a nonprofit where I run webinars, life skill webinars. I have a college scholarship going every 2 years in the name of my mother. I wrote a couple of books. I'm definitely staying busy, and I keep my hand in law enforcement. And so my goal with teaching, as far as teaching at John Jay College, is that I feel that I am able to connect and educate and enlighten a lot of the future law enforcement professionals, because the majority of people that go to John Jay College end up joining NYPD or some other law enforcement agency, because that is the focus of the school. So with me being able to let them know what it's really like in policing and things like that, which is part of the books that I wrote, are geared towards that. So
Yeah.
I'm very busy.
Okay. Okay. And talk
Yeah.
about these books that you've written.
Okay. Well, I have them here. I don't know if I can hold
Okay.
them up if you'll see them. So
Yep.
this is
Yeah.
the first book. It's called Forward Motion: The Keys to Progress and Success. Now, this book was written for the young person on the street, or who is in the position that I was in when I made the decision to choose one life over another. This is a motivational empowerment book. It shows you, it teaches young people how to avoid the obstacles that can destroy their lives, that can take their lives in a whole wrong direction. It teaches them to make the right decisions, to follow through, to be aggressive with your dreams and your plans. This book was written with my son in mind at the time. He was going through some things, and I kind of wrote this book almost as a message to him, as well as when I was working in NYPD. One of the last homicide cases I dealt with was involving a young male named Jamal, and I had had a conversation with him on a prior case, and I gave him information on a person in the community that could get him into a GED program, and he promised me that he was going to follow through and get off the streets, get away from the gangs he was with, and dealing which he was doing, and look into a GED program and then fix his life. And the very next homicide that I had after speaking to him, the uniform officer on the scene informed me that this individual had my card in his pocket. And when I pulled back the sheet and saw that it was Jamal, it really hit me harder than a lot of the other homicides that I had dealt with. And I realized then that it was time for me to branch out of NYPD and try to reach more youth if possible. Because as you know, sometimes communication with law enforcement is not the best communication for these young people on the streets. They don't necessarily want to hear what we have to say when we're in uniform or when we have that badge and gun on. But
Right.
as a black male, I felt like I could reach them more, being a little bit disconnected from NYPD, and that was one of the reasons why I retired and went into this line of work as
Nice.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this book was to help those individuals who just lack mentorship, lack guidance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, very
And
important.
and do you have the other book available?
Yes. So after that, I wrote this book, The Personal Side of Policing. And I wrote this book after teaching at John Jay College for some time, for about a year or two. And the students that I would run into in John Jay, my students had so many questions. What's it like? Is it really bad? Do you really not get to spend time with your family? And they had all kind of questions, from
Yeah.
big questions to small questions. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to write a book, and it's gonna explain everything, the pros and cons. It starts with the salary and the pension and all the other positives, but it goes into the camaraderie. It goes into dealing with the public, how difficult that can be. It goes into how it affects you mentally, all of the different things that you deal with, the things you see, the tough skin you're supposed to have, all of
Mm-hmm.
the difficulties. And I wrote this book to prepare those going into law enforcement for what they were going to get into, the positives and the negatives, So that was that book. And then
Yeah.
it's not over yet.
Got more, eh? Accomplished author
Finally,
here.
yeah, the last book I wrote. Let me see if I can put this one up. The police are part of our community. Now, this is a children's book, and it has great graphics, great pictures, and things inside. And I wrote this book because I wrote this book during COVID when the George Floyd and the Breonna Taylor cases and those things came up and became very popular, and it seemed like the world hated the police at that point even more. It became worse. The sentiment towards police became worse, and I began to realize that there were a lot of conversations being had in households, at dinner tables, in the street with, young people. And a lot of times there were young children in the vicinity, either in the family or just there listening and picking up this information and not really understanding it because they're young.
Right.
And what that does is that makes them afraid of the police. And the last thing we want is for children to be afraid of the police because a lot of the conflicts that we see is fear. A lot of times when we see someone not listening to the police or resisting, it's that fear. And if we can remove that fear, it would help in eliminating some of these issues. And I just did not, I grew up, when I was in policing, one of the things that I loved the most was when a young person came up to me and said, "Hi, police," and they were so happy to see us, and we shook their
Yes.
hand, or that is such a great feeling, and I felt like that may be becoming lost on this new generation of young people. So I wrote this book to show young people how how police are supposed to be in your community, what their job is to help you and be positive and things like that. But I also wrote it so that parents can initiate a conversation with their children about policing and the police role in our society and all things like that. So I wrote the book so that hopefully the parents can read it to the children. There's a part of the book that has vocabulary words, and it's not a vocabulary book, but there is a part where I show police training, and on the board of this police training, let me see if I can get this right.
There it is right
The
there.
instructor is teaching the police about these different terms, and in the
Okay.
back of the book,
Yeah, we
I
got
define all of.
yeah,
Yep,
for our
de-escalation
listeners.
is the first one.
Yep. We got de-escalation, cultural
De-escalation,
awareness, community policing, professionalism and respect, criminal law, police science, social science, and police tactics.
right? So, and then I define these words in the back, and the definitions are so that the parents can explain these things to the children, and just have a fuller conversation about policing and what police are supposed to be doing in our communities, and what they really do for the most part in our communities. So with that, I'm staying busy,
Yeah, it
as you
sounds
can
like it.
see.
Man, totally sounds like it.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah.
stay busy,
Hmm.
and it totally sounds like that you are. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And since you wrote a children's book and just recently last week we had that tragedy in Uvalde, Texas, where
Yeah.
the young man went into the elementary school and killed, what was it, 19 kids and a couple adults
Hmm.
there as well. What were your
Yes.
feelings when you heard about that?
Quite a tragedy. You know, it's sad to see that there are so many issues in our community that would cause more and more people to turn to that type of violence as a way of handling situations. it definitely is a very sad situation, and we as a country we need to come together and find solutions, whether it be the gun laws, whether it be mental health issues, or as I feel, a combination of all. I think we have
Yes.
multiple issues. I think it is not just the gun laws. I think it is a combination of everything, and if we address them properly, then I think we can see positive outcomes, because it's definitely not getting any better,
Yeah. Yep.
unfortunately.
Yeah, you hear the 2A people that are really pro gun, and they talk about, there are already laws on the books. We don't need more laws on the books. Criminals don't
Right,
follow
right.
don't follow the gun rules and regulations and laws anyway.
Hmm.
So, you're just hurting the law abiding people that want these AR-15s. But New York has a pretty pretty robust and strict gun law. And you don't hear, I mean, although you do hear violence in New York, you rarely hear of assault weapon things going on in New York. And it is it
That's
possibly
true.
because of the strict gun laws? What do you think?
I think so. I think that, although gun laws don't completely keep guns out of the hands of criminals, the AR-15, in my opinion, I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but I think that's a law enforcement military weapon. Period.
Yes.
Any other way, there's no reason for anyone to have that unless they are preparing for some kind of action, and we should not be preparing for that. So, but yeah, New York, we have a lot of guns in New York, but they're handguns, and they're, and these are illegal guns coming from the 95 pipeline and coming from down south and other states where the laws are um, more relaxed, So I think gun laws play a role in this situation. It is not the only solution, though, but it is a big part of.
Yeah. And obviously the mental health portion of it, people that usually do these sorts of things have some sort of mental condition that needs to be addressed. But easier said than done. I don't know what there's always going to be red flags here and red flags there.
Yes,
And
yes,
we need to act on them, but as law enforcement. But there's no monitoring across the board, and all social media, and what's going on in people's homes and all that. Obviously, police, law enforcement needs to be tipped to these sorts of things. Hey, Johnny is doing
right,
this and Johnny's doing that. um I don't know, it's something that we need to discuss as a society, because this doesn't happen anywhere else. Not that anywhere else has the gun culture that we do in the US, but you don't
right.
hear this in many other countries, right?
Exactly, exactly. This does not happen in the other countries. So we obviously have a very unique situation here, and some parts of it, all our freedoms and rights, and I understand that, but we still need to control what's happening. There is obviously, and I had this conversation with one of my students recently. A student who felt like, guns are not the problem, and I said, yeah, I understand guns are not the problem, and this student actually said that a person with a knife could do just as much damage, and I agreed, and I said, you're absolutely right. I know that as a fact. However, that it's not happening with knives; it's happening with guns. So let's address the issue, what it is, and stop trying to stop it. It is guns, so let's address the gun issue. It is mental illness. Let's address the mental illness issue. One of those issues can be fixed immediately. The other one, which is mental illness, is going to take time. So we can work on both, but we have to address both, not just one.
Yep, for sure there. Yep. And another thing that kind of took place, New York has been a brunt of a lot of, maybe not the school shootings, but a lot of terrorist activities that have gone on in New York, being, the Big Apple and one of the
Hmm.
premier metropolitan cities in the world. Where were you during 9/11?
Well, actually, during 9/11, I was actually working, and I ended up down at the site, and I ended helping because I was a detective at the time. I ended up being stationed for the month at the morgue, identifying the body parts and going
Oh,
through the
wow.
rubble after the fact. But it was a day that anyone who was there will never forget. It just seemed like the world was coming to an end that day. It was unbelievable, way beyond our wildest dreams. It was crazy, crazy day. And then there's so many people that are still dying from what happened that day. So
Yeah.
very sad day, tough day, and I lost several friends as well that day.
Yeah, I can imagine. And when
Yeah.
I was there a few years ago, I visited the memorial site, and it's really powerful,
Hmm.
like you said, really powerful. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It is. Very,
yeah.
very.
And did you have to go through any? I'm sure you and many of your colleagues had to go through some mental health evaluations and kind of help you through that afterwards.
Yes. 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 Well, thankfully, there is a very strong World Trade Center program that monitors our health, mental and physical health, provides complete coverage for anything World Trade Center related, whether it be mental or physical. And so we are constantly, even to this day, still being monitored and, given the assistance we need. So there are guys that have uh, uh, 9/11 PTSD, and they're gonna sleep and just can't function because of what they saw that day. Or some graphic images that will just never be removed from your mind. And
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah,
yeah. That's man, just even watching that, the documentaries and everything that took place that day, I can only imagine.
yeah,
And I thank you for your service over there and getting through it. And yeah, man,
mm,
and I love New York. I told you off air that we went there before. We plan
yeah.
on going there again this summer. And man, I love New York. New York is it.
Hmm.
Yep.
It's a
Uh,
great city. There's a lot going on right now, but it's still a great city.
yeah, man. I don't know how you guys do it in the winter though. Let me I will say that.
Yeah, the winters can be tough. Yeah, the cold weather and the snow. I mean, it's something to get used to.
Yeah, yeah. And since you were born and raised, you don't know no different. But I'm out here in Cali, and
Right.
it gets below 50. I'm like, hey, it's cold. So you know what I mean? So
I wish that was as low as it got here, man.
no,
It gets
I know for sure
really
that
cold, man.
I know for sure it's definitely gets a little bit colder than that. And I noticed over there
Hmm.
that you don't really need a car because the public transit is really good over there. And if you do have a car, you got
Yes.
to pay for parking, and it's kind of tough to pay.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good transit system. And so
Hmm.
NYPD is handling all the transit now. Huh? There's no more transit.
Yes. Right. Yes. NYPD handles transit and housing, so
Okay,
all,
but
all under one umbrella.
but uh, but there's a separate agency, right? The Port Authority, or is that correct?
Yeah, well, the Port Authority handles the bridges and tunnels, but there's also a MTA which handles the subways and the buses. They have their own police department as well, and so does the Port Authority. So there are a lot of entities that actually come together, but for the most part, as far as the subways and the buses, it's usually NYPD.
Right, right. Because NYPD nowadays is probably what, like 30,000 strong. Is how big was it at the height
So
when you left?
when when I came on during the Safe Streets, Safe Cities program, they boosted it up to over 40,000.
Wow,
Now it is somewhere between 30 and 35,000, which is still
man.
tremendous amount of police
That's
officers
yeah,
when you
that's
think
almost
about
a cop on every corner. It sounds like.
it. That's what it sounds like, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lot of cops, man.
that's
Really
a
is.
bureaucracy.
It is. It
Yeah,
is. It is.
and
It
to be able to
definitely is.
manage. all those people and all that, that's got to be a major thing, because that's as big as some cities, you know.
Absolutely,
It's a
absolutely.
lot
It
of
is a lot.
employees. Yeah. What are
Yeah.
some great memories that you have of working the streets in New York?
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things that I enjoyed about being a detective in New York is that we got to travel a lot, which was one of the things we did on a lot of cases. Matter of fact, I was in California on one of my cases. Now that I think about it, I was in San Francisco area, and I got to see the Golden Gate Bridge and all that type of stuff. But we also had cases that took us to some very unusual places. I had a hostage negotiation job while I was in the homicide squad, where I had an individual that was threatening to jump off of one of the bridges that connected Brooklyn and Manhattan. And it was my job to go to speak to him and get him to come back in and, give up that. So, but in order to reach him, he had climbed over the and was like on a ledge kind of underneath the bridge, and I had to be roped up by ESU, which is our emergency service unit, which is comparable to like a SWAT team in some of the other police departments. So they had to rope me up and hang me off the side of the bridge to speak to this guy, and it was amazing when I actually, there were a few moments where, fear kind of kicked in, and but at the same time I was kind of honored. As crazy as this is gonna sound, I was kind of honored to be the guy who was hanging off of a bridge, being tied down by being, held by NYPD, and actually doing something that I never thought I would be doing, and it was just one of the more memorable cases in my career, and just so that you know, the reason that I was that they had me tied, they had a huge rope around my waist, and the reason was because in case this individual decided he wanted to jump to his death, in case he decided to grab me on his way down, that they would be able to pull me back up. And so when you kind of think about that, it's like, wow, like, so
Yeah.
one of the things that really thrilled me and motivated me about policing, same thing that most people do not do policing for, the fact that I'm willing to put my life on the line for someone else. That is such an, I don't even know if honor is the right word, but that is, it's such a great feeling, and that drove me to get involved with a lot of different aspects, take a lot of training, and do all kinds of things with hopes of getting those type of opportunities to actually affect someone's life.
Absolutely. All right.
Hmm.
All right, Al. I appreciate you coming on to the show, man. This is a great conversation
Okay,
with you.
thank
I
you.
learned a lot about NYPD and all that. But hey, you're not done. I got a little trivia thing I'm gonna do. Not trivia, a little question and answer thing here for you.
Okay,
And this is called
perfect.
Superhero, he was black. He said, "This is for the street. Black Lightning's back."
all right, this right here is my Black Lightning round. I'm just gonna throw a quick question at you, and you throw a quick answer back at me.
Okay.
We can learn a little bit more about Dr. Alfred Titus, and maybe some little bit about NY. So, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. So, if I were to visit New York, what's the best restaurant me and my family needs to go to?
Wow. I would say City Crab, probably. City Crab in on yeah, City Crab. City
City
Crab
Crab.
in
All right.
Manhattan.
I'll look that
Yeah,
up. Look that up.
look
All
that
right.
up.
Yankees or Mets?
Yankees.
Yankees. I mean, that was a. Hey,
Yes.
there's some Met fans out there. I had to ask.
Yes, there are. And I'm actually from Queens, but I do like the Yankees better.
Oh, okay. All right. Other than your parents, somebody that you looked up to or was a mentor to you coming up?
Well, I listened to there's a motivational speaker, Les Brown. I listened to him a lot growing up. I also had individuals in the police academy, Instructor Failure and Inspector Jackson in the police department. Those are people who I kind of modeled my policing career behind.
Okay, all right. You know, you kind of answered this earlier. Best show about NYPD. You said Law and Order. Let's talk about any movies about NYPD. What do you think is the best movie that's ever depicted NYPD?
Wow.
Anything come to mind?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'll tell you this: even though Law and Order is the television show that I like the most about NYPD currently, the show that actually got me into policing was a show called Starsky and Hutch back in the day.
Yes.
And that was my that was my favorite show growing up. And me and my friends would actually play that in the street, and I was always Starsky. So I like to roll around on the ground. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it comes on reruns out here, and I catch that whenever I can every now and then. Huggy Bear and the captain that was always screaming.
Yes, Captain Dobie was his name.
Yes, that's
Captain
right.
Dobie.
Man,
yes.
really did know about that. For real. So when you first started, was NYPD, were they wearing the light blues?
Yes, they were actually.
Okay.
We were wearing the light blues.
Okay, so your preference, the light blues or the dark blues?
Definitely the dark blue.
Definitely the dark blues?
Definitely.
Why is that?
Definitely.
I think it looks more professional. That's what we wear out here on the West Coast. But
I think so too. Yes. And I think they modeled it after the West Coast because they realized, as a matter of fact, Bratton came from the West Coast at that point, and I believe he may be the one that changed it over.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
To the blue shirts.
Yeah, I think he was LAPD. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yes, he was for a while. Yeah.
All right. Furthest place you ever visited on a case?
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Okay.
Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Didn't want to come back from there, huh?
Oh, definitely not. Beautiful place, and I've been there several times since. But that was my first time, and I loved it. We were looking for someone who had, someone who took off on us, so we found out that he had went down there to a family, so it was a good case.
Right. Okay. And last, New York is where they say the birth of hip hop. So LL or P Diddy?
LL. I'm sorry, LL all the way. He's from Queens too, Farmers Boulevard. So
Farmers.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, my brother. I appreciate you coming on to the show, man, and having some fun with me and all that. Before I let you go, just some words of wisdom, some parting shots out your door here for my viewers and listeners.
Yeah. Well, through my empowerment speaking, I always tell people, listen, follow your dreams, be true to yourself, and stay focused. With mental health being the focus now, take that time out for your mental health. Take a break, spend time with family, whatever the case may be, but then get right back onto your grind. We have a society that seems to want to. Well, you know what? I'm not even gonna say that, but just stay focused, get the job done.
Stay focused, get the job done. Yep. Easy words to live by. All right, my brother, I appreciate you. You stay safe out there in Big Apple.
Okay.
And hey, if you ever make it out here to Southern California, look me up.
All right, will do. Thank you.
All right, brother. Take
care,
care,
everyone.
All right, y'all. That does it for this episode of the Black and Blue Podcast. I want to thank retired NYPD Detective Dr. Alfred Titus for coming onto the program. I appreciate your service, sir, and look forward to picking up one of your books in the future. If you guys out there enjoyed this interview too, be sure to click that like button right down here on my YouTube channel, or rate it 5 stars on whatever podcast platform you're listening to me on right now. I'll be back in another couple weeks with another informative and entertaining interview, but till then, I know what I'm about to say. Stay black in blue. I'll holler at you. Deuces.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.